Sunny as it was that morning, I couldn't really rationalize getting up. Sun was sticking to my blinds all persistent, and, if the week had gone a little different, I could have jumped right up to ingest it. That week I had witnessed a bird on a bridge. I had watched a young girl on the bus joke with her grandfather. I had felt at home amongst friends. Writing being the only productive iteration of dwelling, sulking, or mulling, I pulled out a pathetic little notebook with black pages and wrote on them with very dark blue ink. As little bits of mania began to weave themselves into internal monologues, the need to get my thoughts in actual order became obvious. In the beginning, I wrote this. The headache about memory is that it is always freighted with loss. If not loss, over with. There must be some difference between loss and over withness, but in my life they are the same. Thinking about their differences, the words themselves seem to demand focus. What does loss mean? What does over mean? These questions come with some anxiety of acting a pedant, but casting that anxiety aside will prove useful here. No doubt, the weight of the two words, when examined on their own and not with other words, is very different. The word loss resonates with the idea that something should exist, or could exist, without being time sensitive. The word over, on the other hand, resonates more with words like finished and done with, which implies their absence was anticipated and is in accordance with an accepted order of events. While summer must, at some point, be over, the enchantment felt while swimming may seem lost because that feeling seems inappropriately time bound. So my problems must be couched heavily in 1. Some difficulty placing loss in a logical order by which I understand an event, scenario, or instance. How can loss actually serve to inform the order governing prosperity in this event, scenario, or instance? I simply think that foregoing the component of loss here would make the event, scenario, or instance more emotionally prosperous. While leaving your dorm room after freshman year may feel like overness and later absence, suddenly having to move out of your home you grew up in would feel like loss. It didn't surprise me, though, when I started recognizing the achy symptoms of loss the weeks leading up to moving out of my dorm room after freshman year. Memory is a very malleable recollection of an event, scenario, or instance. My thinking is that there is an emotional component and a reality component, where memories harbor the thing that happened and the way you felt. The memory component can overpower the reality component, and so a memory may be skewed from reality. For example, a memory of a really beautiful sunset may live in your mind, even though the sunset was typical and the bliss of busting out a beautiful kickflip was occupying your spirit at the time. Your mind will likely internalize the feeling more strongly than the reality of the situation, so that the reality remains malleable in the hands of emotion. This is well understood in psychology, where experts talk about memory as being strongly encoded when sensory inputs are associated directly with emotion. This idea is the momentum behind the popular idiom, rose-colored glasses. Like all things, memory evolved in order to ensure the success of a gene pool, but upon the development of the frontal cortex, the stuff absolutely expanded to serve all physically and emotionally stimulating scenarios. While at one point in time, hominids only remembered things important to survival, where was it I saw that plum? How many steps has it been since I left the presence of my offspring? The safety of our species has allowed us to expel energy towards and catalog an uncountable number of memories in even a typical week. Most people agree memory is important, to the extent of saying that when you're dying, memory is what will matter most of all. When you experience ultimate loss or overness, it will be the measure by which your lived experience accrues meaning, gratitude, and peace of mind settles. This sentiment is the momentum behind the popular idiom like, money can't buy happiness. Most people come to understand this relatively early on, and I'd speculate the whole understanding is really thrown into motion by experiencing some especially potent memory. Something like witnessing an insane reflection from the moon on Lake Michigan with friends you won't see for a while. This would be a good example because, while experiencing the reflection, once-in-a-lifetimeness can't go ignored. The once-in-a-lifetimeness of such an event stirs in us an almost compulsory urge to remember in hopes of avoiding loss. It may even introduce a little anxiety. Memories happening now. After this realization, it's only right that memory gathers momentum and begins to be the thing that is assigned the most weight in every event, scenario, or instance. It is probably quite possible to avoid memory-related anxieties and, instead, enjoy events, scenarios, and instances while assigning memory the weight it demands. This would probably involve consciously linking memory with overness and not with loss. Memory is not sustainable if it is consciously linked to loss. Memory is the paralyzing plate that sends for anxieties to siphon bliss from blissful moments. It is a plague and ought to be done away with. Nostalgia is hard to define, but calling it a longing for tenderness works for me. Nostalgia is the momentum behind pretty much every Ingmar Bergman movie besides his best, The Seventh Seal. Before reading on, please take a moment to ponder the concept of premature nostalgia. The concepts of nostalgia and memory are inseparable. But if memories are usually, for a person, consciously linked with overness, would nostalgia still be the result of remembering? Or is nostalgia only the result of remembering when memory is consciously linked with loss? It seems like the former is the most true, though it relates to each other and so behaves on a spectrum could be the answer too. No matter which is true, they both respect nostalgia as inseparable from memory. A know-it-all big leaguer type of person told me he was planning to write a whole thesis on nostalgia and told me that nostalgia has two components, melancholy and utopia. The utopia component came as a surprise to me. It didn't really take me long to identify with it, but it just seemed to reaffirm my convictions about memory. Between melancholy and utopia, melancholy would have to be the dominating component because melancholy is a feeling and, so, is self realized. Utopia, of course, cannot be realized and so only exists as a lack or longing, both of which feed into melancholy. Which sends for anxiety, memory, or premature nostalgia? Perhaps an idea of premature nostalgia would be a better substitute for memory in terms of what demands most the weight of an event, scenario, or instance. So, melancholic nostalgia overshadows events, scenarios, or instances that are worthy of memory, since memory demands to receive almost the entire weight of consciousness, given that memory, the thing that matters mostly when you die. Surf the Matrix as a disembodied consciousness and chill?